Hey, what's going on there, guys? Good evening. It is the Earthmaster back here on this wonderful Friday night, April 28th, 2023. It's about 10:12 p.m. here along the west coast in the state of California. Looks like we have a 5.0 earthquake down here, well south of Australia. Kind of makes sense, though, considering all the activity we've seen here around the Tonga Trench south into New Zealand. Making a little sense. Starting to see a little migration over there along the plate boundary. All right, let's go ahead and check out what's going on out here into the States. My hotkey's still not working for some reason, so got to do it a different way. All right, so let me refresh this, make sure we got the most recent information. Still seeing a pretty good earthquake swarm down here into the state of Southern California. Extreme Southern California here, really close to the border near Mexicali, El Centro area. I was down here a couple years back investigating an earthquake swarm there on the Brawley seismic zone. Man, let me tell you, I don't know if I'll ever go back down there. It is a, not the best smell in the air out there, pretty hazardous. Yeah, a pretty good earthquake swarm here, and we're looking at about 50 earthquakes. Now, this is a little concerning because I don't think we've really seen a main quake yet down here. It looks like the largest has been a 3.2, and a lot of these magnitudes are all over the place as far as the depth of these earthquakes go. Some shallow, some pretty deep. So looks as though we may be moving towards somewhere around potentially here in Southern California of a larger earthquake with this type of setup. I do want to look here when the last major quake was around the Imperial Fault. We're going to do a quick look here, and we're going to go basically 6.0 and above. We can go back 1920. Why I picked that year, I don't know. It's just because I did. So we're going to draw a little area just down here. Nothing big. Just want to cover the area where this earthquake swarm is occurring and kind of see what's going on down here. It is at the extreme southern end, close to the San Andreas Fault. So we want to make sure that it's not too close to that area. So looking at this map here since about 1920 or so, it looks like it's been a while since we've seen anything above 6.0 specifically in this area. Now, I know further down south along this plate boundary there's been some other earthquakes, but up here around the Brawley seismic zone and the Imperial Fault area where they kind of meet, there's a couple other different faults here. I wonder if I can get them key in. This is a southern end of the San Jacinto Fault Zone, a couple different sections. Now, this is a very lengthy fault. It runs, pretty much down here from the border northward, all the way up, almost to the plate boundary there of the San Andreas Fault. So that and the Elsinore Fault are two of the main faults out here on the Pacific side of the plate boundary next to the San Andreas Fault. So with this type of activity, I'm a little concerned because of some potential further movement here. So I am going to issue out here an earthquake watch once I get back here on the stream. I'll key that up. Just because of this elevated activity. A lot of times we'll see 4 or 5, 6, 7, or 8 earthquakes in a day, but this is getting a little up there in terms of the multitudes here, with 49 earthquakes popping off there into this area. Let me go back here to this. Let's see, 1979, a 6.4 on the Imperial Fault. Now, up here along a couple different segments here, I guess this was kind of makes sense because this swarm is occurring just at the extreme southern end of the San Jacinto Fault Zone. We've seen the latest one, it looks like back in 1987, 6.6, 11 kilometers deep. And 1987 also seen a 6.2. Looks like a day prior to the 6.6. So a little bit of elevated activity back there in the 80s. That's been a while, right? A little bit of time accumulation down here, and we already know, man, do we already know that this area is wound tight as can be. You hear everyone chatting about it. It's not fear mongering. That's just the facts. So down here, definitely got to be on guard here within this area. It's a little ways away from the actual plate boundary itself. It's on a completely different fault system, but still, in this type of setup, it could be pointing to something much, much bigger about ready to take place. So heads up there in Southern California. Be on guard with this continued earthquake activity. Also, a little bit of separate movement up north here near the San Jacinto mountain range here. Again, this is a pretty lengthy fault system. Runs well north of this area into almost the San Andreas Fault up here at the southern end. So be on guard. A lot going on down there right now. 1.4 also well off the, it's a ways off the plate boundary here into the North American plate. 1.4. Further up north, not a whole lot going on through the Bay Area or the Northern California region. Most of this earthquake activity from yesterday, but we did have one earthquake here off the coast of Northern California, south of Crescent City. 1.9, 6.2 kilometers deep, just offshore. Kind of an odd one there. Let's see what we have for the tremor tonight. The Cascadia tremor will give us a little good indicator of what's going on down there. We do have a little bit here in Northern California that could be contributing to strain upstream. Got 205 epicenters of tremor. Kind of looks like it's split between up north here and down south into Northern California. And that could be playing a part on what we've seen here over the last couple days and even today's event. They're a little small microquake, but still a little bit of elevated activity there in Northern California. Well up north into the Canada area, we did have a couple small earthquakes there near Princeton, Canada. 3.4 and a 2.3 early this morning. Yellowstone National Park. What do we got here? 2.3 Hebgen Lake Estates from early this morning. So let's see what we have going on there at Yellowstone. A little bit of activity. I believe that's, I'm thinking that's at 2.3 showing up over here. Doesn't look like a whole lot of activity kicking up currently at Yellowstone. I don't see any major swarms currently, but still little activity kicking up there today. I think I just seen a mosquito in here. That's not good. Texas and Oklahoma and the rest of the country, look at that. Absolutely quiet. Not a whole lot going on. Aside from Southern California, it's kind of hard to ignore this activity. So we'll watch that pretty closely. A lot of that may not be showing up here on the Earthquake 3D globe because I have, some of it is. I have the magnitude threshold set at 2.0 and above just to keep a little bit of the clutter off of the globe. But still, a pretty good swarm of activity occurring down there. All right, let's see what we got here across the areas of the Tonga and the Kermadec Islands, Kermadec Trench. Seen a lot of deep activity here since yesterday's 6-pointers that kicked off out here. Latest activity looks like a 4.6 within the mix there, 542 kilometers deep into the, take your pick, the Tonga Trench or the Kermadec Trench here. Looks like it's split in between the two. So definitely seeing some elevated activity well below this region. Still waiting on some potential larger scale movement upstream here. I know we haven't seen it, but it's definitely building up. All right, New Zealand. Let's jump into the New Zealand activity here real quick. Go over here to the earthquake map from the GeoNet servers here that monitor the earthquake activity across New Zealand. Also, Timothy's got a pretty cool site that he's got set up as well for New Zealand activity. Looks like a 3.9 just south of Wellington there, west of Wellington, excuse me. But most of the activity is within that region where we seen that 5.9 a couple days ago. Looks like there's still some continued aftershock activity there. Check out the drums and see what's cooking out there. North Island, going to be roughly around, well, there's some. This looks like about the closest station here. There's a little bit of activity here. Those are going to be the earthquakes that were pointed out on the previous page. Aside from that, there's the one near Wellington there. Let me check out the volcanic drums here and see what we have. Yeah, it looks like just some of that earthquake activity showing up across some of these. No major swarms there at the Taupo supervolcano for now. And of course that 5.1 down here near the Macquarie Island area on the plate boundary. This is a this is definitely a fracture zone out here. It looks like some type of divergent boundary on the plate boundary. Around New Guinea area, looks like a little swarm of 4s and 5s kicking off over the last 24 hours. Let's see what else we have across the area. Not a whole lot of westward movement here for now. We do have 4.7. Or is that? Let's see, where is that? 4.7. It looks like pretty recent earthquake up here. So is it going to be this one? Looks like it. 4.6 here from just earlier this evening into the close to the East China Sea. Also a little bit of activity up north here into the Japan Trench and the Izu Trench from earlier this morning. 55 kilometer deep, 4.4. And this one here just off the coast of Japan from this morning, 64 kilometers deep for that 4.3. Karl Kamchatka Trench up north, quiet for now. The Chile area looks a little absent of earthquake activity down here. Only some 2s and 3s. Nothing showing up here across the USGS map at all. Caribbean plate, low activity across Puerto Rico. Nothing major going on there. And some movement across the Middle America Trench with a couple 4s. But I think our hot spot right now is the west coast there, Southern California. Getting a pretty good swarm of activity once again here around the Kilauea volcano. I'm telling you, look at that, 0.9. There's one, it's about 7 kilometers deep. Either way, it's getting very active across the area there of Kilauea volcano again. Let's see what we got for the latest informational statement, which was put out this morning, and it basically just said the same thing as what it's been saying for the past couple days. Small flurries of earthquakes have occurred. No major changes. There has been gradual inflationary tilt, indicated swelling, so to speak. That's what inflationary is. So, obviously, I think something's getting ready again to, to be eruptive on the active status, so to speak, for Kilauea volcano. We'll watch that for sure. See, I don't know when it's going to happen, but I think the more earthquake activity that we see, the more likely it will be erupting again. All right, up into the Alaska area. Not seeing anything major out there. A couple 2s across the plate boundary here of the subduction zone. Let's see here. Further west, way out here. Mostly 2s and 3s. Looks like Turkey had a 4.5 earthquake earlier. A little bit of aftershock movement taking place there. Atlantic Ocean, clear. Nothing going on here across the South Sandwich Trench. So we'll just kind of watch this, folks, and see how it plays out. Again, I think we need to watch Southern California with this little swarm going on. It's been a while, since we've had any type of earthquake activity down there. Southern California, it's just, I'm starting to think that it's maybe fused together permanently, but I don't think that's the case. GPS measurements and whatnot tell us that's not the case, but it does tell us that there is a lot of stress and strain down here in this area of the state. So be on guard, folks. Space weather activity getting a little interesting out here. We're crackling here with a bunch of sea flares. Starting to look like a little popcorn graph, I call it, when we start to see this elevated uptick in solar flare activity, almost reaching into the M flare category today. We had one, looks like yesterday or day before, with a low-grade M flare, but right now we got some C flares popping off here. Most of that is coming from a sunspot region that is currently facing Earth. This one right here, wow, this thing looks massive. Looks like it's grown pretty fairly nicely. Latest structure here of the magnetic fields show this thing is gaining strength, folks. Look at that, very close proximity there of the magnetic fields. Different colors, all compacted together. Good indicator of a very complex structured sunspot. Also up north here, this one is looking a little bit more active as well. Looks like that's grown and getting unstable even since this morning's update. So we got these two regional sunspots here that we need to watch pretty closely here for some possible large flaring. 95% chance for C flare, M flare at 25% chance, X flare at 1. Nothing major going on across the Aurora area for now. Let's see here, 3288. That is the one that's currently facing us. That harbors a beta, gamma, delta class, and these are the ones that can produce some noteworthy flares. That is the one that is currently facing us. Looks pretty awesome here on the visible disk. All right, yeah, so we'll continue to watch that and see how it plays out. I think it will. I think it's actually getting ready to pop a nice flare here pretty soon. We'll definitely watch that. There's a lot of plasma and whatnot stretched back along this sunspot region, so watch that pretty closely. Let's see here what we got for weather activity. I think this is a current day. Well, this is updated for tomorrow, Saturday. It's still technically Friday here along the West Coast, so this is looks like tomorrow's potential severe weather. Looks like mostly wind and hail way down south into southern Texas. Not seeing anything drastic on the board here, any major elevated severe weather potential right now, so which is good news, right? West Coast, I do want to bring up West Coast activity because we have some rain in the forecast here. It hit 97 degrees today here in Northern California, so it was pretty hot. I was out in the pool most of the day, also doing a little bit of yard work. I know, shouldn't be staying too well. I don't mind the heat. I'm kind of used to it. I lived out here for most of my life, so yeah, but the pool definitely felt nice here. Either way, we have some cooler temperatures coming up. Looks like on Monday of next week. So this weekend's going to remain hot, but Monday we have a low pressure system that's going to be cut off here from the north, and that's just going to sit here and kind of spin over the area of the West Coast, bringing with it much cooler air, and also the chance of snow up in the higher elevations, and looks like potential maybe rain and some thunderstorms out here into Northern California. Either way, this is a kind of an odd event for us here in May. We don't normally get rainfall out here in May. That's just not typical of the weather pattern. But it's been an odd one, hasn't it? Definitely been a crazy winter. And of course, we are coming into the El Nino pattern, where that also affects the West Coast here in the wintertime and the summertime. So we'll go into that a little bit later in a different update. Looks like we already got some monsoonal moisture kicking up here into the Four Corners and up out of Mexico. So that's definitely something to watch as well. Let's go back here to the we can go to the western U.S. here. I want to see what's going on out here in Texas. Yeah, it looks like a lot of moisture is just coming up straight up out of the south, bringing in a lot of moisture there to Texas. But look at that. Good portion of western Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska. getting in on some much needed precipitation. So it looks like off and on rainfall threats out there, at least through the middle of May, which is good news for those folks. They definitely need it. All right, guys, have a good one. I am going to jump off here, and hope everyone has a good night. We will catch you guys back out here sometime tomorrow. Take care.